The ship called the Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and Kongtae saw something that made his breath stop. A planet floated before them, bigger than anything he had ever imagined. Its surface glowed with lights from 1,000,000 cities. Rings of space stations circled it like jewelry around a giant's neck. This was Theron Prime, the capital of the Galactic Union. Kong Tae stood at the viewing window with his hands behind his back. He was 62 years old, a diplomat who had spent his life talking to difficult people. But he had never talked to aliens before. No human had. Until 18 months ago, humanity believed they were alone in the universe. Then a probe crashed in the Pacific Ocean, and everything changed. Yoon Hannah stepped up beside him. She was the scientist who had cracked the secrets of the alien probe. She had figured out how to make ships travel faster than light in just 18 months. Other scientists said it was impossible. She did it anyway. "It is beautiful," she said quietly. "It's terrifying," Kongtae replied. 4,000 species. Civilizations millions of years old. And we are the new children walking into their house. Captain Baekjun's voice came through the speakers. "Ambassador, we are being escorted to Landing Bay 7. They have sent 12 ships to guide us. I think they want to make sure we do not get lost." Kongtae smiled slightly. "Or they want to make sure we do not cause trouble." The Horizon followed the escort ships down through the atmosphere. As they descended, Kongtae saw the grand chamber rising from the planet's surface. It was a building shaped like a massive dome, large enough to hold a small city inside. This was where the Galactic Council met. This was where the fate of Earth would be decided. The human delegation consisted of 12 people: diplomats, scientists, and military advisors. They wore simple dark suits because no one knew what aliens considered formal clothing. Dr. Park Yoon, the military strategist, walked at the back of the group. She was a quiet woman who rarely spoke, but when she did, people listened. They entered the grand chamber through doors that were 50 meters tall. Inside, the chamber opened up into a vast space filled with seats rising in circles toward a distant ceiling. Thousands of alien delegates sat watching them. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had no bodies at all, just floating clouds of light. The air smelled strange. A mixture of 1,000 different atmospheres blended together. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform. Admiral Nori waited there. He was an insectoid creature, tall and thin, with 4 arms and eyes that reflected light like black mirrors. He was the chairman of the Galactic Council, and he looked at the humans the way a person might look at insects crawling across their floor. "You are the species called humans," Admiral Nori said. His voice was translated through devices that made it sound cold and mechanical. "You come from the planet called Earth. You have achieved faster-than-light travel. This is why we have summoned you." Kongtae stepped forward and bowed his head slightly. "We are honored to stand before the Galactic Council. We come seeking friendship and cooperation." A sound rippled through the chamber. It took Kongtae a moment to realize it was laughter. Thousands of aliens were laughing at him. Admiral Nori raised one of his 4 hands, and the laughter stopped. "Friendship is earned over centuries. Cooperation requires something to offer. What does your species offer, human?" "We offer ourselves," Kongtae said. "Our creativity, our determination, our willingness to learn." More laughter. This time, Admiral Nori did not stop it. A reptilian creature stood up from the lower seats. His scales were green and gold, and his eyes were slitted like a snake's. "I am Delegate Viren," he announced. "I have studied your species. You live for less than 100 years. You fight wars against each other over ideas. You poison your own air and water. You cannot even agree on how to govern yourselves." He spread his clawed hands. What could such a species possibly offer the Galactic Union? Kongtae felt heat rise in his chest, but he kept his face calm. He had been insulted before. He had been dismissed before. He had learned long ago that anger was a weapon best kept hidden. "We are young," he admitted. "We have made mistakes, but we learn from them, grow. That is what humans do." Admiral Nori made a clicking sound that might have been amusement. Every infant species believes it is special. Every infant species believes it will become great. Most of them die within 1,000 years. The universe is not kind to children who believe their own stories. Kangtae took a slow breath. It was time to tell them the real reason they had come. We are not here only to introduce ourselves, he said. We are here because we need help. Our scientists have detected something moving through space toward our region of the galaxy. A swarm. Our records found references to it in the probe that crashed on our world. You call it the Hollow. The laughter stopped immediately. The chamber became very quiet. The Hollow, Admiral Nori repeated. His voice had changed. It was harder now. You know of the Hollow? We know it consumes worlds, Kangtae said. We know it has destroyed civilizations far older and more powerful than ours. We know it is coming, and Earth lies in its path. We are asking the Galactic Union for protection. We are asking to join your alliance so that we might stand together against this threat. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Delegate Viren began to laugh again, and this time the laughter spread like fire through the chamber. You want us to protect you? Viren said between laughs. You, who have been traveling between stars for less than 2 years? You, whose entire fleet consists of 40 ships? You want the Galactic Union to spend resources defending a species that will probably destroy itself within a century anyway? Admiral Nori's black eyes fixed on Kangtae. The Hollow is a force of nature. It cannot be stopped. It can only be avoided. We have spent millions of years learning its patterns, predicting its movements. When it comes, we evacuate. We survive. That is how civilization endures. And those who cannot evacuate. Kangtae asked. Perish, Admiral Nori said simply. That is the way of the universe. Kangtae looked around the chamber at the thousands of faces watching him. Some looked amused. Some looked bored. None looked sympathetic. Then we asked for membership in the Galactic Union, he said. Give us access to your knowledge, your technology. Let us help ourselves. Admiral Nori made the clicking sound again. Membership requires a vote. The vote requires deliberation. Deliberation requires that the Council believe the species in question has value. He looked at the chamber. Does anyone here believe humans have value? Silence. Not one delegate spoke in their favor. Your request is denied, Admiral Nori said. Return to your world, humans. Enjoy the years you have left. The Hollow will arrive in approximately 5 of your years. You may use that time however you wish. Kangtae did not move. I request the right to speak further. Admiral Nori tilted his head, his black eyes glittering. You wish to beg more? I grant you this right. Perhaps your begging will entertain us. Behind Kangtae, Dr. Park Yoon leaned close to Yoon Hana and whispered so quietly that no translator could catch it. Let them laugh. We did not come here to beg. Kangtae stood alone on the platform while thousands of alien eyes watched him. The laughter had faded, but the mockery remained in every face. Admiral Nori had given him permission to speak, expecting entertainment. Kangtae intended to give him something else. You asked what humans have to offer, Kangtae began. You called us young. You called us primitive. You pointed to our wars, our conflicts, our short lives. All of this is true. But you have missed something important. He began to walk slowly across the platform. His footsteps echoed in the vast chamber. We have existed as a species for 300,000 years. For most of that time, we lived in caves and hunted animals with rocks. We discovered fire. We learned to farm. We built cities. We invented writing. Each step took thousands of years. He paused and turned to face Admiral Nori. Then something changed. In the last 200 years, we went from riding horses to walking on our moon. In the last 50 years, we connected every human on our planet through invisible networks of information. In the last 18 months, we learned to travel faster than light. A murmur passed through the chamber. Kangtae continued, Your species, Admiral, took 4,000 years to develop faster than light travel after discovering the principles. Delegate Viren, your people took 6,000 years. The average for species in the Galactic Union is 3,000 years. He spread his hands. We did it in 18 months. From a crashed probe and broken pieces of alien technology, Our scientists built a working faster-than-light engine in 18 months. Delegate Viarn stood up, his scales rippling with agitation. That is impossible. You must have received help. Someone must have given you the designs. Yoon Hannah stepped forward. She was small compared to most of the aliens in the chamber, but her voice carried clearly. No one helped us. I led the team that built our engine. The probe that crashed on Earth was damaged. Most of its systems were destroyed. We had fragments, pieces, hints. We took those hints, and we filled in the gaps ourselves. High Scholar Tal, the Council's chief historian, rose from his seat. He was ancient even by alien standards, a being of wrinkled gray skin and 6 eyes that moved independently. I have studied your species' records. Your scientific method is barely 400 years old. Your understanding of physics is primitive. How could you possibly have recreated technology that took elder species millennia to develop? Yoon Hannah met his gaze without fear, because we did not try to understand it completely. We did not wait until we had perfect knowledge. We took what we had, we made guesses, we tested them, and we failed. We failed hundreds of times. And each time we failed, we learned something new. We did not have the luxury of time, so we did not waste time on perfection. We found solutions that worked, even if we did not fully understand why they worked. The chamber fell silent. For the first time, Kong Tae saw something other than amusement in some of the alien faces. He saw confusion. He saw discomfort. He saw, perhaps the smallest hint of fear. Admiral Nori's clicking sounds grew faster. This proves nothing. Speed without wisdom is dangerous. A child who learns to run before it learns to think will only run into walls faster.
Apps,
Kong Tae said. Or perhaps the child will learn to think while running. That is what humans do. We do not wait for perfect conditions. We do not wait for complete understanding. We act. We learn. We adapt. It is messy. It is chaotic. Sometimes it is destructive. But it is also why we are standing here today. Only 18 months after we discovered we were not alone in the universe. Delegate Mox, who had been silent throughout the proceedings, finally stirred. He was an ancient being, a creature that looked like a walking tree, with bark-like skin and branches that moved like arms. He was the oldest delegate in the chamber, representing a species that had existed for over 1 million years. When he spoke, his voice was like wind through leaves. I have watched many young species come before this council, Mox said slowly. Most of them were humble. They asked for guidance. They asked for time. They accepted their place at the bottom of the hierarchy and waited patiently for centuries to prove themselves. His many eyes, like amber jewels set in wood, focused on Kong Tae. You are not humble. You do not ask for guidance. You stand before beings who have existed since before your species climbed down from trees. You speak as if you are our equals. Kong Tae nodded. We do not claim to be your equals in knowledge or experience, but we claim to be your equals in worth. Every being in this chamber was young once. Every species here started from nothing. We are simply at an earlier point on the same journey. A journey most species do not complete. Admiral Nori said coldly, the universe is filled with the graves of species who believed they were special. Your confidence does not impress us. It concerns us. Delegate Viren laughed harshly. Concerns us? There are 40 ships and a single planet. What threat could they possibly pose? Not a threat, Admiral Nori replied. A nuisance. A species that does not know its place causes problems. They interfere. They disrupt. They ask questions that have already been answered. They make demands when they should make requests. He turned his black eyes back to Kong Tae. The Galactic Union has existed for 600 million years because we have learned to maintain order. Order requires hierarchy. Hierarchy requires that young species accept their position and wait their turn. Kong Tae felt anger building inside him again, but he kept his voice steady. And what position would you have us accept? You have already told us that you will not protect us from the Hollow. You will not share your knowledge with us. You will not give us membership. What exactly are we supposed to wait for? Our own extinction? That is not our concern, Admiral Nori said. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kangte looked around the chamber one more time. He saw Delegate Vrin's satisfied smile. He saw High Scholar Tall's dismissive expression. He saw thousands of faces that had already forgotten about the small human delegation and their dying planet. Only Delegate Mox watched them with something different in his ancient eyes. Not sympathy, exactly. Something closer to curiosity, as if he was waiting to see what they would do next. "Very well, Kong," Tay said finally. "We accept your decision." Admiral Nori seemed surprised by the calm response. "You accept it? We accept that you will not help us. We accept that we must face the hollow alone. We accept that, in your eyes, we are nothing." Kong Tay gathered his delegation with a look. "But understand this. We came here hoping to find allies. We came here hoping to find wisdom. Instead, we found a council that watches species die and calls it order. We found civilizations so old that they have forgotten what it means to fight for survival." He turned and began walking toward the exit. His delegation followed. "We'll face the hollow ourselves," Kong Tay said over his shoulder. "And if we survive, we will remember this day. We will remember who laughed at us. We will remember who offered nothing while demanding everything." "Delegate," Buren called out mockingly, "you will not survive. The hollow has destroyed species 1,000 times more powerful than you." Dr. Park Yoon stopped at the door and looked back at the chamber. Her voice was quiet but clear. "Then we will be the first to prove you wrong. Or we will die trying. Either way, we will not spend our final years begging for scraps from those who have already given up." The doors closed behind them, and the human delegation was gone. The chamber erupted in conversation, most of it mocking, most of it dismissive. But Delegate Mox remained silent, his amber eyes fixed on the closed doors. He had lived for 1,000,000 years. He had seen countless species rise and fall, and something in the way those humans walked out of the chamber, their backs straight and their heads high, made him feel something he had not felt in a very long time. He felt doubt. 3 months passed. On Earth, no one spoke about what had happened at the council. The news was kept quiet. People went about their lives, unaware that their planet had been sentenced to death by beings who considered them worthless. But behind closed doors, humanity was preparing. Yunhana worked without sleep in her laboratory. She studied every piece of data they had about the hollow. Every fragment of information from the crashed probe, every record from the Council's public archives. She was looking for a weakness. She was looking for a pattern. She was looking for hope. Captain Baek Jun trained his crews until they could fly their ships blindfolded. 40 ships. That was all Earth had. 40 small vessels against a swarm that numbered in the millions. It was laughable. It was impossible. He trained them anyway. Dr. Park Yoon spent her days in a dark room filled with screens, watching recordings of hollow attacks from centuries past. The Council kept records of every world the hollow had consumed. They used these records to predict the swarm's movements, to know when to evacuate. They had never used them to find a way to fight back. Park Yoon watched the recordings again and again. She watched worlds burn. She watched fleets scatter. She watched civilizations die. And slowly, she began to see something that no one else had seen. Then the message came. It arrived at midnight, Earth time. A burst of encrypted data from Theron Prime. Admiral Nori's voice filled the communication room, and for the first time, there was fear in his translated words. To all species of the Galactic Union, the hollow has emerged. It has bypassed the outer systems and is moving directly toward the inner worlds. Its trajectory includes Theron Prime. All ships are ordered to evacuate. All species are ordered to prepare for immediate departure. The hollow will arrive in 16 standard days. Kangte listened to the message in silence. The Council had predicted 5 years. The hollow had come in 3 months. Their models were wrong. Their predictions were useless. The same beings who had mocked humanity for being primitive had failed to see the danger coming until it was almost too late. A second message followed the first. This one was private, sent directly to Earth. Admiral Nori's voice was quieter now, stripped of its arrogance. To the human delegation. You are advised to begin evacuation procedures. The Hollow's path will not reach your system for approximately 8 months after it finishes with the inner worlds. Use this time to flee. Go as far as you can. Perhaps you will find somewhere the Hollow cannot reach. This is the only advice I can offer. I wish you luck. Kong Tae played the message for his team. When it finished, no one spoke for a long moment. He is telling us to run, Dr. Park Yoon said finally. He expects us to watch the Union burn and then spend our final months running. What else can we do? Yoon Hana asked. They have 10,000 ships, and they are evacuating. We have 40. Captain Baek Jun stood up slowly. He was a big man, with a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. He had served in Earth's military for 30 years. He had fought in 3 wars. He had never run from anything in his life. We can help, he said. Everyone looked at him. Help. Yoon Hana repeated. How can we help? We are nothing to them. Less than nothing. They made that very clear, as Baek Jun said. They made it clear that they think we are worthless. They made it clear that they will not fight for us. But that does not mean we cannot fight for them. Kong Tae understood immediately. You want to go to Theron Prime? I want to go to wherever the fighting is, Baek Jun replied. I want to show them what humans do when the universe tells us to give up. I want to prove that everything they said about us was wrong. Dr. Park Yoon smiled for the first time in weeks. I was hoping someone would say that. She pulled up a display on her screen. It showed the Hollow Swarm, a massive cloud of biological ships moving through space like a plague. I have been studying the Hollow. Everyone treats it like a natural disaster, something that cannot be stopped or controlled. But it is not a storm. It is not an earthquake. It is alive. And everything that lives has patterns. Everything that lives has weaknesses. She pointed to specific areas within the swarm. The Hollow is coordinated. Millions of individual creatures working together as one. How do they coordinate? There must be something controlling them. Some kind of central intelligence, or at least central communication. She zoomed in on several larger shapes within the swarm. I believe these are the nodes. Biological command centers that send signals to the rest of the swarm. If we can disrupt these nodes, even temporarily, we can create chaos in their formations. Yoon Hana leaned forward, her eyes bright. I can work with that. If the nodes are communicating through biological signals, there might be a frequency we can disrupt. A pulse that interrupts their coordination. Kong Tae looked at his team. Scientists, soldiers, diplomats, a handful of humans planning to fight a battle that civilizations millions of years old had given up on fighting. We might die, he said simply. We're going to die anyway, Captain Baek Jun replied. At least this way, we die standing up. Kong Tae nodded slowly. Then we go to Theron Prime. We offer our help. If they refuse it, we help anyway. The message Earth sent to the Galactic Union was short. We are on our way. The human fleet jumped to faster than light speed, heading toward a battle that everyone expected them to lose. 40 ships. 3,000 humans. Traveling toward the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. When they emerged from FTL at the Varus Corridor, the Union Defense Fleet was already assembled. 10,000 ships from 100 different species, arranged in massive defensive formations. Commander Gall, a 4-armed amphibian, led the fleet. His voice came through the communication channels, filled with disbelief. Human vessels, you are ordered to withdraw. This is not your fight. You do not have authorization to be here, Captain Baek Jun answered. With respect, Commander, we did not ask for authorization. We came to help. Help. Commander Gall's voice was incredulous. You have 40 ships. The hollow numbers in the millions. Your help is meaningless. Then our deaths will be meaningless too, Baek Jun said. But we would rather die here, fighting beside you, than die later, knowing we did nothing. There was silence on the communication channel. Then another voice spoke. It was Delegate Mox, the ancient tree being, observing from Theron Prime. Let them stay, Commander. They have traveled far to die. The least we can do is let them choose where. The hollow appeared on sensors moments later, a wall of biological ships stretching across space like a living darkness. Millions of creatures, moving as one, coming to consume everything in their path. Lieutenant Shinera sat at her tactical station aboard the Horizon. She was 26 years old. She had never been in real combat before. Her hands should have been shaking. Instead, she felt strangely calm. All ships, this is the Horizon, Captain Beak June broadcast. We know what they think of us. We know what they expect. Let us show them something new. The hollow came like a wave of darkness. Millions of biological ships, each one a living creature bred for consumption. They did not negotiate. They did not threaten. They simply moved forward, eating everything in their path. Stars disappeared behind them. Planets vanished into their mass. They were hunger given form, and they were coming for Theron Prime. The Union fleet held its formation. 10,000 ships arranged in perfect defensive lines, shields overlapping, weapons ready. This was how they had always faced the Hollow. Hold the line. Slow the advance. By time for evacuation. Accept losses. Retreat. The human fleet did not hold formation. The moment the battle began, Captain Beak June gave an order that made Commander Gold choke with disbelief. All ships scatter. Break into groups of 4. Find the nodes. The 40 human ships split apart and dove directly into the swarm. On the Union command ship, Commander Gall watched the human vessels disappear into the mass of hollow creatures. They are insane, he said. They are flying into death itself. Delegate Mock stood beside him, watching the displays. Perhaps. Or perhaps they see something we do not. Aboard the Horizon, Lieutenant Shinera worked her console with fierce concentration. Yunhana's frequency pulse was ready, but they needed to get close enough to the nodes to use it. The hollow creatures swarmed around them, crashing against their shields, trying to tear them apart. Node detected, bearing 7-3, Shinera announced. Distance, 200 kilometers. Take us in, Captain Beak, June ordered. The Horizon dove deeper into the swarm. Hollow creatures scraped against the hull. The ship shook with each impact. Warning alarms screamed, but they kept going. 100 kilometers, 50, 30, 20, in range. Fire the pulse. Beak June commanded. Yunhana activated the device. A wave of energy burst from the ship, invisible to the eye but devastating to the biological signals that held the swarm together. The effect was immediate. The node, a massive creature the size of a small moon, convulsed. Its signals stopped, and all around it, thousands of hollow creatures suddenly lost their coordination. They stopped moving as one. They began crashing into each other. They scattered in confusion, their perfect unity broken. It works. Shinara shouted. The swarm is disrupting. Duration, 90 seconds, Yunhana reported. After that, the node will recover. 90 seconds is enough, Beak June said. All human ships, target the confused creatures. Hit them while they cannot coordinate. The human fleet tore through the gap. Their weapons were small compared to Union technology, but they were precise. They struck confused hollow creatures before they could reform. They hit the node itself, damaging it permanently. They did more damage in 90 seconds than Union ships had done in hours. On the Union command ship, Commander Gall stared at the displays. How are they doing this? Their ships are primitive. Their weapons are weak. How are they killing the hollow? Delegate Mox understood. They are not fighting the way we fight. They are not trying to hold a line. They are hunting. They are finding weaknesses and striking them before the enemy can respond. That is not how wars are fought, Commander Gall protested. It is how their wars are fought, Mox replied. Perhaps that is why we dismissed them. Perhaps that is why we were wrong. The battle raged for hours. Human ships darted through the swarm like insects, using the pulse to create moments of chaos, then striking hard before retreating. They lost ships. They lost people. But for every human ship destroyed, hundreds of hollow creatures fell. The Union fleet began to change its tactics. Individual captains, watching what the humans were doing, broke from their defensive formations. They followed the human ships into the gaps, They learned to strike during the moments of disruption. Commander Gall resisted at first. This is not standard procedure. We cannot abandon our formations. Our formations are failing, another officer reported. The standard tactics are not working. The humans are the only ones making progress. Gall looked at the displays. It was true. The defensive lines were crumbling. The hollow was pushing through. But wherever the human ships went, the swarm was dying. He made a decision that went against everything he had been taught. All Union ships adapt to the human strategy. Break formation. Support the human vessels. Target the nodes. As the battle transformed. 10,000 ships stopped fighting like a wall and started fighting like a storm. The hollow, which had never faced this kind of attack, began to falter. But the swarm was vast, and it was learning to... The nodes began to protect themselves. They concentrated hollow creatures around them, creating shields of living bodies. The human ships could not get close enough to use the pulse. Captain Beek Jun saw the problem immediately. They are adapting. The nodes are too well protected now. Dr. Park Yoon's voice came through from Earth. She had been monitoring the battle from the beginning. There is a primary node. Larger than the others, it is coordinating the defense. If you can destroy it, the entire swarm will fall apart. Shinera found it on her sensors. A massive biological structure at the center of the hollow formation, surrounded by millions of creatures. Getting to it was impossible. No ship could survive that journey. Beek Jun looked at the display for a long moment. Then he turned to his crew. I need everyone except essential personnel to evacuate to the secondary ships. Now, the bridge crew stared at him. Lieutenant Shinera was the first to understand. Captain, no. There has to be another way. There is no other way, Beek Jun said quietly. The Horizon carries the strongest pulse generator. It has enough power for one massive burst, but only if we get close enough. Closer than any ship can get and survive. Then let me do it, Shinera said. You are the captain. You should survive. Beek Jun smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was no fear in it. I am the captain. That means I do not ask my crew to do what I am not willing to do myself. He put his hand on her shoulder. You will live to tell this story. Someone has to. Evacuation took 4 minutes. Most of the crew transferred to nearby ships. Only Beek Jun remained on the bridge alone. He opened a channel to the entire fleet, Union and human alike. This is Captain Beek Jun of the Earth vessel Horizon. 3 months ago, the Galactic Council told us we were nothing. They told us we were primitive. They told us we were insignificant. He began flying the ship toward the primary node, dodging swarms of hollow creatures, pushing through the storm of death. Today we showed you what humans do when the universe tells us to give up. We fight. We adapt. We refuse to die quietly. The horizon was being torn apart. Shields failed. Hull breaches opened. Warning systems screamed. I do not know if anyone will remember our names. I do not know if Earth will survive what comes next. But I know this. We did not kneel. We did not beg. We stood. The primary node loomed before him, a mountain of living darkness. Earth remembers those who said we were nothing. We hope you remember us differently. The Horizon activated its pulse generator at maximum power and flew directly into the primary node. The explosion was visible across the entire battlefield. A burst of light, then silence. The primary node was destroyed, and the hollow swarm, for the first time in recorded history, began to fall apart. On Theron Prime, Delegate Mox watched the battle turn. He watched the hollow scatter, leaderless, confused. He watched the Union fleet destroy what remained. They fight like they have already died, he said to himself. That is why they do not fear death. The silence after battle is different from ordinary silence. It is heavier. It carries the weight of everything that was lost. For 3 days after the Battle of the Varus Corridor, that silence hung over the entire galaxy. The hollow was not completely destroyed. It never could be completely destroyed, but it was broken. Its primary node was gone, and without coordination. The remaining swarms scattered in random directions, no longer a unified threat. For the first time in 600 million years, the Galactic Union had not just survived a hollow encounter, they had won. The cost was terrible. 2,000 Union ships were destroyed. Entire crews were lost. Planets that could not evacuate in time were consumed before the tide turned. Trillions of beings had died, and of Earth's 40 ships, only 14 remained. Lieutenant Shin Era sat alone in her quarters, aboard one of the surviving vessels. She held a small photograph in her hands. It showed Captain Beak June standing in front of the horizon on the day it launched, proud and strong and alive. Now he was gone. 3,000 humans had traveled to fight beside the Galactic Union. 800 had survived. The door chimed. Yunhana entered slowly. "The council has summoned us," she said quietly. "They want us to appear before them again." Shinara did not look up. "Why?" "So they can mock us again. So they can tell us our sacrifice was meaningless?" Yunhana sat beside her. "I do not think that is why." The grand chamber looked different now. 3 months ago, it had been filled with laughter and contempt. Now it was filled with silence. Thousands of delegates sat in their seats, but no one spoke. No one made jokes. They watched the small human delegation enter with expressions that ranged from guilt to amazement to something that might have been respect. Only 7 humans entered the chamber this time. Kung Tae led them, walking slowly, his face showing every one of his 62 years. Behind him came Yunhana, Dr. Park Yoon, Lieutenant Shin Ara, and 3 others. They wore their simple dark suits, now worn and stained from weeks of battle and loss. Admiral Nori stood on the central platform. He did not look the same either. His black eyes, which had been so cold and dismissive before, now held something different. He looked smaller somehow. Older. "Humans of Earth," he began. His voice did not carry its usual authority. "You stand before the Galactic Council once more. 3 months ago, you came to us asking for help. We refused. We told you to return home. We told you that you were insignificant." He paused. The silence in the chamber was absolute. "We were wrong." The words echoed through the vast space. Delegates shifted in their seats. Some looked away in shame. Others stared at the humans with new eyes. "You did not return home," Admiral Nori continued. "When you received word that the Hollow had come, you did not run. You did not hide. You came to fight beside us, even though we had offered you nothing. You came to die for beings who had laughed at you." He stepped down from the platform and walked toward Kong Tae. In all the history of the Galactic Council, no chairman had ever stepped down from the platform to address a delegate directly. It was a gesture of equality that had never been offered to any species before. Captain Beak June gave his life to destroy the primary node. His sacrifice saved Theron Prime. It saved billions of lives. It changed the course of a battle that we believed was already lost. Admiral Nori lowered his head. The Galactic Union owes a debt to humanity that can never be repaid. Kung Tae stood silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. 3 months ago, you laughed at us. You called us primitive. You called us insignificant. You told us to go home and enjoy our remaining years. His voice was calm, but carried through the entire chamber. We did not come back to save you, because we wanted your respect. We did not come to prove you wrong. We came because it was the right thing to do. When billions of lives are in danger, you do not ask whether they deserve to be saved. You simply save them. That is what humans do. He looked around the chamber at the thousands of faces watching him. You offered us nothing. We gave you everything. Not because we expected payment. Not because we hoped to change your minds. We did it because that is who we are. We are young. We are small. We live short lives and make countless mistakes. But when the darkness comes, we do not run. We stand. We fight. We die if we must. And we never, ever give up. Delegate Mox rose from his seat. His ancient voice filled the chamber like wind through a forest. I have lived for 1 million years. I have seen 10,000 species come before this council. Most of them were forgotten within a century. But I will not forget what I saw at the Varus corridor. I watched your tiny fleet fly into a swarm that should have killed them instantly. I watched your captain give his life without hesitation. I watched your people refuse to accept defeat even when defeat was certain. He spread his branch-like arms. The universe is vast and cold and indifferent. It does not care about courage or sacrifice. But I care. And I say this, humanity has earned its place among us. Not by waiting patiently for permission. Not by proving themselves over centuries, but by standing when no one else would. Admiral Nori faced Kongte directly. The Galactic Council offers Earth full membership in the Galactic Union, with all rights and privileges. We offer alliance, partnership, and friendship. We offer everything we denied you 3 months ago. The chamber held its breath, waiting for Kongte to accept. Instead, he turned to look at his people. At Yunhana, who had created the technology that made victory possible. At Dr. Park Yoon, whose strategy had found the weakness in an enemy that had never been defeated. At Lieutenant Shin Ara, who had lost her captain and her friends, but still stood straight and proud. Then he turned back to Admiral Nori. We accept your membership. We accept your friendship. His voice hardened slightly. But we do not accept your apology. An apology cannot bring back the dead. An apology cannot undo the contempt you showed us. We do not need you to be sorry. We need you to remember. Stepped closer to the Admiral. Close enough that his words were almost private despite being heard by thousands. Remember that when you measured us by our technology, you missed who we were. Remember that when you judged us by our short lives, you failed to see what we could do with those lives. Remember that the species you dismissed as insignificant was the one that saved you. He stepped back. And if you ever encounter another young species asking for help, remember this day. Remember what might be lost if you turn them away. The chamber was silent. Then, slowly Delegate, Mox began to make a sound. It was a low, rumbling tone, like distant thunder. Other delegates joined in. It grew and grew until it filled the entire chamber. It was applause. The Galactic Council was applauding humanity. 1 year later, a memorial was built on Theron Prime. A statue of Captain Baek-Jun stood at its center, surrounded by smaller figures representing all the species whose worlds had been saved by human sacrifice. Visitors came from across the galaxy to see it. Yunhana led a new research initiative, combining human creativity with alien knowledge to develop better defenses against the Hollow. Dr. Park. Yoon returned to Earth to train a new generation of tacticians. Lieutenant Shinera became the captain of a new ship, named after the one that had been lost, and on the memorial, beneath the statue of Captain Baek-Jun, a simple inscription was carved in every language of the Galactic Union. The final line, written first in Korean and then translated into 4,000 tongues, read, "They were small. They were brief. They broke easily. And yet, when the universe demanded they kneel, they stood. That is what makes them magnificent." Years later, a young alien student asked Delegate Mox about humans. The ancient being was quiet for a long moment before answering. They do not live long. They are not the strongest, or the smartest, or the most advanced. But there is something in them that I have seen in no other species. When everything tells them to give up, they refuse. When death is certain, they fight anyway. When hope is gone, they create more hope from nothing. He turned his amber eyes toward the stars. Never dismiss them. Never underestimate them. Because when the universe sends its worst, humanity sends its best. And that young one is something to fear and admire in equal measure.